because I train Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I might have mentioned this to you
For sure.
in the past, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So we always have this talk about why it's important to learn self-defense. And there's for women specifically in the US, there is a 25% chance probability that they will be attacked in their lifetime. But what do a lot of them say? Well, not me.
Yeah.
There is a 1 in, I believe, 700 million chance that they will win the lottery, and they say, you never know.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Vision Builders, the show about freedom, what it is, what it takes to build it, to share it, in the age-old practice of leveraging other people's hindsight to bring clarity to our own developing stories. This episode is a special one. It's a little bit different than our normal course of action. I have a new friend, a colleague, Marc, who I got a chance to meet. And, the 2020 was a year where I was very focused on trying to upgrade my associations, getting around some people who've maybe done some things, been some places that I haven't, that I could learn from and grow from. And Marc is one of those guys. And, he's with a company called Social Advisors. We hit it off on a lot of different fronts. And I just wanted to share a little bit of our conversation with you because it was a good one. And for whatever reason, we pressed record. And so I wanted to just jump in with that conversation. Hope you enjoy it. If you do like content like this, if you like this different approach, let me know. If it's totally weird, let me know that too, because I want to make sure that we're creating great experiences for you. So as always, like, share, subscribe, leave comments, let us know what you think. And without any further ado, let's get into it.
Document.
Yeah. Document.
As in the verb, document.
Yeah.
Because what you do in your daily life, man, you never know. My post today was about the importance of sharing on LinkedIn. Now, that post partially was inspired by a post a financial advisor called Trevor Phibbs, who I'm connected with on LinkedIn, posted earlier today. And it just happens that in the past couple of days, I've been listening to the audiobook on TED Talks by Chris Anderson.
Okay.
And I'm at the very end. I'm about to wrap up the book. So the last chapter is talking about the importance of sharing, because that's the whole idea behind TED, our idea is worth sharing. And they say, all knowledge rhymes. There are many fields of knowledge, however, all these fields rhyme. And you never know how you sharing about your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge can inspire someone and serve as a spark for them to do something even greater. So my post today was inspired by two things I did in the morning. Listening to the audiobook and reading a post by another financial advisor who shared something very, very personal, by the way. Very, very personable. And he said in that post that that sharing about this very personal thing helped him take weight off of his chest. So that was great.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for like redeeming moments, right? Like, I feel like the trouble that we face, which is universal, by the way, none of us is exempt. We all face troubles. We all face that moment when things aren't going exactly how you hoped they would, right? Or the lightning strike out of the blue that you just didn't see coming at all. Like, that's universal. We all have that. And yet, for some reason, when it happens, we get myopic. Like, we forget that this is just life. Like, this is just how it goes. And one of the best ways, one of the most universal things to help us get out of that is a "yeah, me too" from somebody else. Like, just to remind you, like, you're not alone, bro. Like, we're gonna be okay. and sharing. And so when we share those personal things that sometimes can be traumatic, I think we intuitively know as soon as we share it, we remember all the time somebody shared something with us that helped us, that we're like, it's like we're freed by it's the thing that tried to keep us in prison has now become the wings that we have to fly forward, right? So like I think there's something to be said for just sharing our experience, not because you said, you know, old wisdom rhymes. The way one of my
You
mentors.
say old, and it's actually both. You're absolutely right in what you said. It's old and old.
Yeah. So, one of my mentors is always saying is, you know, truth is redundant wherever you might find it. Like, because he said the reason he said this, he said, you know, somebody he was telling us a story, or he was giving a talk, and somebody came up to him and said, "Hell, have you read this? And you have read that?" And like half the stuff that they suggest, he has read, but a lot of it he hasn't. He's like, you know, if it's true though, there's going to be some similarities between this other thing that is also true, because, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. Like they're all wisdom, or all truth. I think the reason it rhymes is because, well, it has to.
Absolutely.
If or it's dissonant, and we know like immediately that's not right. That's not a true thing. So my man, what have you got going on in the new year that's got you excited?
Life.
It's a good place to start.
I'm always excited about everything. I'll give you one that is very powerful. I think it's the very purpose of life, which is my son being born last week.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's the best. That's the best. Oh, man.
Remember one side of my family is from Guinea-Bissau, so goes towards your part of the world from one end.
Yeah.
That health, the fact that we are really we're still in this, you know, we're like a lot of predictors like to say, well, this year is going to be the transformative year. We're always going through transformation, no matter what. Your body is going through evolution throughout your lifetime. Now imagine what's happening in the economy and everything else around you. I'm excited to see how these changes that were happening, or the events that were taking place in 2020, will affect professionals, entrepreneurs, specifically financial professionals in this year. Because a lot of them last year were saying, well, this is temporary. We don't really know if this is really going to stay around. This whole thing with using Zoom and these video chat technologies is going to go away. Platforms like LinkedIn are not as important, really. That's just a fad. You can't use DocuSign to authorize quote unquote serious deals, whatever it is. It kind of goes along the way of saying, oh, it's happening to everyone else. They're getting affected by these changes outside, but it's not going to happen to me. And it's almost like, because I train Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I might have mentioned this to you
for sure
in the past, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So we always have this talk about why it's important to learn self-defense. And there is for women specifically in the US, there is a 25% chance probability that they will be attacked in their lifetime. But what do a lot of them say? Well, not me.
Yeah.
There is a 1 in, I believe, 700 million chance that they will win the lottery. And they say, you never know.
Yeah.
So like a lot of these things that were happening in 2020 for sure are going to affect all of us in 2021, 2022, just going forward, this entire decade that we have ahead of us. So I'm excited to see how financial professionals will adjust themselves to these changes, who will adapt and who will not adapt. And the ones who do adapt, what lessons have they learned by adapting. So
Yeah.
that's going to be very interesting.
Well, that's actually really poignant. I once had a student back in another lifetime when I was, coaching actors, right? Like performers. And this kid he was 4 years old and it was just amazing. Like all of
Yeah.
us, when he walked into the room, we all felt it. And his parents, um, his dad said something that has stuck with me forever. Like it shook me to my core because he asked a question. Me being a coach, it like looking at me like I'm supposed to give an answer, and I'm like, that's a heaven question, man. Like I don't know what to say to you, but there's so much truth in your question. And here's what he said. He said, "My kid is gifted. He's obviously gifted. And as a parent, I'm standing by and trying to support him. But my big concern is just because he's exceptional, how do I teach my son? How do I help support my son in that knowing that just because he's exceptional does not make him the exception?" And I
Mm-hmm.
was like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa.
That's that.
And
That's
and
it.
suddenly I was like holding the mirror up. I'm like, how do I teach myself that just because I'm exceptional does not make me the except? Like I'm sitting here growing up right now, and this man's looking at me for wisdom, and I'm being taught like in real time. And but still to this day, like I think about that all the time when it comes to adapting, when it comes to moving forward. When there's a stimulus that hits the marketplace, it hits the whole marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
We have different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you and I are in a field and a bear is running towards us, if you're 20 feet from the bear and I'm 1 mile from the bear, you and I have different rates of response that are necessary to survive. We
Absolutely.
need to use different tools. We need to look for different things to survive this bear coming in our general direction.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But there's still a bear in the field.
Yep.
Just because your rate of response necessarily was different doesn't mean I don't still have to deal with that fact that there's a 2,800 pound 13-foot creature that's in the field that we were previously just hanging out and like taking pictures in. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what this has been. This pandemic, this situation in which we find ourselves. It's a bear in the field, man. Like, and different people at different stages, like the restaurant owners, I feel like they were the ones who were 20 feet from it.
Yes.
The gym owners, the people who got shut down. And I feel like a lot of people in our industry had the luxury / honestly the misfortune of misjudging that a bear can cover a mile in about 3 minutes. So
Easily.
so
It's a
what?
honey-powered machine. What do you
So,
expect?
right, with claws and teeth. And did I mention 2,800 pounds? Like it's a big creature. And so I feel like a lot of us have misjudged how close we are to the bear. And like for me, I feel like I feel fortunate. Like there were some people who were kind of pushing me before the pandemic started
Yes.
to tighten up my game, like to get better at leveraging some tools and some automation factors. And
Take a look at your systems, your
yeah,
processes, evolve.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then when the pandemic hit, I had this overwhelming feeling of like, oh, I need to run, not walk. And still, it's taken me the whole year, really, at least the last 9 months. I feel like to get to a place where I'm like, I feel like, in as much as anyone can, I feel like I now know what I'm doing with my systems, right? But it took me 9 months of feeling urgent every day, like it's an
We
emergency.
underestimate how much time
Mm-hmm.
we're underestimating how much time, and we all the time underestimate how much effort it takes to get it done.
And
It's almost like I've listened to a very known entrepreneur, especially on social media, Grant Cardone, talk
mm-hmm.
about this concept of 10x.
Yeah,
You think it'll take you 1 hour to do something? Well, expect they will take you 10 hours just to be safe. It's almost a mentality. And I had this conversation with a financial advisor yesterday when we had a meeting, and we were talking about business development. And the way I was explaining to him was the same through running. I said, when sprinters run, sprinters don't run to reach the finish line. When they're being trained, the coach tells them, imagine that the finish line is 2-3 meters beyond the finish line. Why? Because you want to be at your top speed when you're passing the finish line.
Right.
So if you only train to get to the finish line, you will never develop your fastest speed. So you need to train beyond 100 meters. You need to go to a competition and bench press 100 kilos, 225 pounds. You need to train for 250, 240. Go beyond that. And isn't it beautiful when you start warming up on time? You stretch, you do your preparation. So when it's time to implement the change, it's a smooth transition versus what's happening to a lot of us, a lot of professionals. We're waiting until the very last moment, and now we have to go take off immediately. Lion cannot just take off like that. Cheetah cannot take off. They're stretching throughout the entire day. I've heard someone say, well, why would I stretch? Lions don't stretch before they hunt. Not true. Every time a cat or a dog gets up off the ground, they stretch. That means that they're preparing their body for activity throughout the day. Whenever they get out of their slumber, they're stretching. So they're always ready. And we were talking about bears. I gotta use a stereotypical joke, about my brothers, my brothers and sisters, Russians. That example of bears and running away from bears does not apply to them. Because one thing YouTube videos have shown us is that they're friends with them. So
that's funny.
But if you were talking about contextual knowledge,
Yeah.
overall, you're talking about the ability to combine different fields and get an understanding on a macro and micro level of what is going on. Because a lot of us are looking at the news, like you're saying, pattern recognition. You were saying right before we started recording, you talked about pattern recognition. Well, that's not being. Think about a financial professional, for example. Think about a financial professional. An average financial professional will finish college, let's say, find a financial advisory firm. Usually they start with a wirehouse. They get their certification. They get trained from that end. They get trained on how to keep up the relationships with clients, but they're never taught how to grow their practice.
No.
Now, for years, they're building a habit of sitting back, laying, resting, and waiting for opportunities to come their way. And if anything, 2020 has shown us, and the years before that, and what this year is already showing us, is that we always need to be proactive. You need to be ready, and that's where your bear example comes in. Who I also think we're talking about, other animals, cats. I have a cat that is an indoor-outdoor cat, and I also had dogs, but not now. And what I learned about cats is almost every single day, they do their rounds of their territory, not to say just this is my territory, to mark their territory, but to know what dangers might be coming their way. If they notice something is there that didn't used to be there, now they can predict. And we see this everywhere in the nature. And because of everything being interconnected and being one unit at the end of the day, how can we possibly think that what is going on down the street will not affect us? So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, you talking about like the whole the territory idea of a cat. And I mean, I don't know why we're sticking on this whole animal analogy. It seems like a long running thing, but whatever.
Natural.
yeah, it works, and I actually, one of the things that I find fascinating is that a lot our pedigrees in terms of just like choice of what we did for fun growing up, because you grew up in martial arts and are still in martial arts. I have kids now that I want like I keep trying to test the waters with my 4-year-old to see if she wants to
It's
learn
time.
to box,
It's
and it's
time.
like so now my next strategy is I'm going to start showing her some videos of some other little girls like doing the work and see if she likes it. And if she doesn't, that's fine. She's musical, so at least there's that thing that we can do together. But I feel like at the very least, she needs to know how to protect herself. Um,
Absolutely.
and
Every
so,
human.
like,
Every.
yeah, for sure. I think every person should. And so, um, when you talk about looking at threats or being aware of dangers, I mean, ultimately, when I used to teach self-defense,
Hmm.
like pre-self-defense is much more useful and common, I think, than the actual fisticuffs of dealing with an attack that comes out of nowhere. And I was like,
Awareness.
awareness, and not to go down that road because I'm a nerd about it, but I think the point that I
Please
think is,
do. Take it away.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'll say this one thing and I'll try to get back. But like
Go,
one
go.
of the things that I realized is like, people who would attack you are for the most part
Mm,
cowards. Like they're looking for the easy pickings. And so if you stand tall with your head on the swivel, looking like you're not looking with your head down in your phone or slouch back, if you look strong, if you take strong steps, if you look like you're making eye contact with everybody, or something as simple as when you walk into a room and there's some people around there, especially if they seem shady, just walking up and saying, hello, my name is, because now you're human, you're no longer a mark, right? No,
yes.
no offense, yeah, but yeah, but you're no
Yes,
longer
yes,
somebody that someone would attack. And it's like,
yes.
so knowing those things of just being aware, keeping your head up on the swivel, make you an unlikely victim. And so bringing it back to like being aware, being aware doesn't just make you systematically strong. It also keeps a lot of threats that otherwise could come your way from ever coming in the first place.
Absolutely.
I think that's a fundamental truth. That's not just a martial arts,
Look at health.
yeah.
Look at last year. Any human passing away is sad. It's part of the circle of life.
Hmm.
With that being said, how many of our fellow men and women did we lose not because of the COVID-19, but because of the fact that their body was not ready to deal with the threat, couldn't keep the threat away because their immune system was weak, because they were not active physically or not eating proper food, just didn't have healthy lifestyles. So I agree. It's about taking these preventative measures ahead of the time. And this is, if you really look at it, look at the big companies. We're talking companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars in all sorts of budgets, from business development to production to everything else. That's their big thing. And because they also understand that because they're so big, it takes them a very long time to redirect their ship, even by a few degrees,
Yeah.
where a smaller firm can do that much faster.
Yeah.
But it's not just enough to be small or big. You need to have a specific type of a mindset. So
Hmm.
if you look at a big firm and a small firm, of course that if they have the same type of a mindset where they understand that they need to be aware and they need to always prepare for the changes that are happening, they're coming their way. Well, if you give them the same start, of course the smaller firm is going to get there faster
Hmm.
in some cases. Well, what good is it that you're mobile and agile if the big one started their process way ahead of you and they're planning for this change? Actually, they were driving the change. They themselves were driving the change years ahead of you. So there's a lot to be said about that. And now look at all the firms, big firms that were around, and an accent on were, not
Hmm.
anymore, because they
Yeah.
failed to adapt, failed to update their business models.
Well, I think there's something to be said about hybridization, right? So like, not to get into, because like saying anything so specific that I would have to like edit it later, but you know, being able to have a small firm functionally, but sitting on a platform of with all the resources of a big firm,
Abundance.
that's a pretty sweet spot. So like, I run my business how I want to run my business, and I leverage the friendships, relationships, training opportunities that I have access to. You know, like the friendship I'm building with you, like
Yes.
I know whether we meet each other at the front doors of our collective aims, I don't even care, because you're
Yes.
good people and we'll find a way to help each other. Like I believe that fundamentally, so I'm not even worried about the details. So like, but at the same time, like one thing that I find really useful is the big firm has deep pockets. And when
Yes.
all these regulatory threats come down the pike, they turn on a dime. Like literally in a matter of 2 or 3 days, they've already made all the adjustments that are necessary with their team of 200 lawyers that they've got on retainer, that they got all
Indeed.
the paperwork written up, they've got all the software changed so that we can respond. Meanwhile, all those mid-sized firms that are too big to change, but not big enough to just write a $2 million check this afternoon, right? Like,
Mhm.
there were 300 something firms that when the DOL thing started happening in 2016, 300
Mhm.
plus firms that just sold their book of
Mhm.
business and chose to go
Mhm.
fishing. I don't know what,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they just were
Yeah.
they were in that place where they were too big to change, but too small to address like what needed to be changed. And I feel for them. But I also know, like, if they're in that situation regulatorily, they're probably in that situation in terms of how they can respond to the needs of the people they serve. And so it's probably, at the risk of sounding really, stone-hearted on behalf of like my colleagues, I know anyone who knows me knows this, that I'm not, so I'm not worried about it. But like, it's probably what needed to happen for the industry to get better.
Without challenges, without problems, we cannot grow. Problems are opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
The issue that a lot of financial advisors have is that a lot of them want to, and this goes with other professions too, not to pick specifically on our financial advisors. They have this habit of saying, well, I don't want that problem. I don't want an issue. I look at it completely differently. I want that problem, because if there is a problem, if there is a challenge to be solved, I can only grow from that. And
Mm-hmm.
what you just said a few minutes ago is pretty much what you insinuated, is how you do one thing in your business is how you do everything. So your inability to handle the legal aspect, dealing with SEC, with FINRA, will will tell you and tells you how you deal with your business development, how you deal with your client retention. So what you're really saying, if I'm understanding correctly, Kilachukwu, is we really need to pause, make these pauses once in a while, and say, hold on, take a look around, educate yourself. And another thing is the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs, why a lot of business people don't make these changes when it's time, is because they don't have the education.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fearful of making the updates.
Mm-hmm.
They're fearful of evolving. But that fear happens because their level of education is low.
Mm-hmm.
If they raise their level of education when it comes to skills, when it comes to what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the industry, what's going on with the market that we're serving, now when you can see the big picture, yes, you might say, man, that's going to be a tough thing, but at least you're aware of it. That's going to be a tough thing to deal with, true.
Mm-hmm.
However, I at least know that exists, because the thing that really kills you is that the thing you're not even aware of existing.
Yeah, Mark, I love your hand movements there too, because like there's a proverb that says a tortoise and a giraffe cannot have a conversation about what they see. Yeah, like
Poor tortoise and poor giraffe.
yeah. So like the tortoise
Both.
might literally be occupying the same ground at the same time as the giraffe, but because of the elevated vision of the giraffe, like the ground starts shaking. The tortoise thinks the world is coming to an end. I'm going to surely fall into a hole and die. The tortoise gets all stressed out. The giraffe, what does the giraffe do? The giraffe keeps chewing limbs off trees, because what the giraffe knows is, no, that was just a herd of wildebeest about a half a mile over there that just crossed the plain. We're fine. Nothing's happening. Same stimulus, but with different perspectives. They have different impressions or ideas about what that means. Like a tortoise is valuable. There's nothing. It's not like the tortoise perspective is worthless. But when it comes to seeing things from a distance, if you don't have an elevated view, that's why coaches and mentors are so important. Like, if I could say one thing to my children, obviously I mean to my team, to anybody who I'm in business with that I could help in any way, I would say that too. But like everything that I think about doing well for other people, it always goes first to the lens: is this something I want my children to know? I guess I get that from my dad. Just thinking like that, and now you being a new dad.
Thank you, Dad. That's what you need to say. Thank you, Father.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Is you can collapse time frames and eliminate so much of the stress that people go through that is just common to people if you are willing to humble yourself and get next to somebody who's been further down the road that you're trying to go down. Start a communication with somebody who's been where you want to go. And like, whatever the costs in terms of time, effort, sometimes money, whatever the case is, if you can identify somebody who is bona fide, like for real has been where you want to go, and they're willing to spend any time with you, treat it like a diamond and make sure that you make that a part of your plan moving forward. It's only the fool who says, I can do this on my own.
Yes.
Because even if you can, how many people got hurt along the way while you were trying to figure it out?
Yes. Yes.
While you were making promises and saying what you would do, only to realize, oh crap, I can't actually do that. I need help.